that the king has mistresses, but that some of those mistresses are effectively officers of the court, if you like. These are usually given the title of maîtresse en titre, official mistress.
She was really sort of the queen de facto, because she had more power over the king, more influence over the king, and she had a much firmer relationship with the French people. And this institution lasted all the way up until the French Revolution.
What made Pompadour's rise remarkable is that unlike most French royal mistresses, she was not hand-picked from the aristocracy. She was the daughter of a ruined financier. And she caught the king's eye at a masked ball in 1745.
It was a fancy dress ball. She went along dressed as a shepherdess, and the king was dressed up as a sort of piece of topiary, actually, one of the yew trees in the Versailles Park. And it's pretty sure that from that moment on, they became lovers. She studies history. She looks at history books about previous royal mistresses and how they've got on and what they've needed to stay in place.
5 years on, Madame de Pompadour ceased to perform one of her most obvious duties. She stopped sleeping with the king.
Suddenly their relationship goes sexually cold. Reasons it's not very clear. There may be sort of medical problems that she has. He may just be sort of fed up with her sexually. Given that sort of change in the very basis of their relationship, I think this is a challenge, a new challenge to Pompadour, to work out ways in which she can stay in place, if you like, without that sort of sexual lifeline.
Her self-imposed chastity forced Madame de Pompadour to become increasingly inventive in ways to keep her lover's interest.
One of the things that Pompadour does is to put her image and the idea of her image absolutely everywhere around the king. So wherever he walks within his palace, he will see one of these wonderful paintings of Pompadour. He will be surrounded by drapes which she has chosen, by wonderful porcelain which she will have chosen. It's as if she sort of like sprays herself onto the environment in which he lives. From the middle of the 1750s, she starts to have an influence on foreign policy, both in terms of military strategy. She endlessly is writing letters to the generals, but also in terms of ministerial policies as well. People are saying she's prime minister. Socially, economically, and politically, she gets something which very few women have in the type of society in which she lives. So she has, in fact, risen to the challenge of reinventing herself as an official mistress without sex, which is actually quite rare in French history and probably in the history of political mistresses as well.
Madame de Pompadour wielded power in her lifetime. But for most royal mistresses, the goal is not political power. It's about securing a better future for themselves and their families. One of the most popular mistresses in history achieved just that. Nell Gwyn was a poor street girl who became Charles II's favorite. Her legacy is the dynasty she founded.
Nell is my 7 times great-grandmother, and I am one of about some 2,000 living descendants that are still alive today who descend from Charles and Nell.
The descendants are now part of the British aristocracy, thanks to Nell's success as the king's mistress. But she couldn't join the nobility herself.
Nellie was the only one of the three main mistresses who didn't get a title out of her relationship with the king. But the difficulty was because of her background that they couldn't really hand out a title to her.
Nell's origins were clearly pretty humble. She lived with her mother and her sister Rose in London, and the mother ran a brothel there, and she and her sister both helped with the drinks.
In 1661, a new career opened up for women. For the first time in England, they could act on the stage and earn an independent living. Nell grabbed the opportunity.
Just as her career started, of course London was hit by the plague, and then we had the Great Fire of London, so she couldn't really get back going until 1667 when the theatres opened again. And then very quickly from there on, she suddenly became a big star, a comedy hit of the West End. It was a well-known thing that actresses captured their lovers and suitors from the stage. It was the one bonus you had of being an actress. There was no respect, there was no money, but you could get a decent guy out of it.
And Nell bagged the top prize, the King of England, Charles II.
I think the thing that probably attracted Charles to Nell more than anything else was her enormous sense of fun and her rather attractive personality. She was very different from all the other mistresses that he'd ever had.
Her reward was to get her hands on a level of wealth she could only have dreamed of.
Nellie was hugely extravagant. She would spend probably the equivalent today of several millions of pounds on jewellery, houses. She had remarkable clothing made for her. Everything was made to order, with gold and silver stitches. What was interesting was that she remained immensely popular. Despite all that extravagance, she still wasn't anywhere near as extravagant as the other mistresses. I mean, she was an amateur compared to them.
But when Nell had 2 sons with the king, she decided she wanted more than wealth. She wanted nobility.
It was suggested just before Charles died that he was going to have created her Countess of Greenwich, and there are a number of references to that at the time, but nothing actually ever transpired.
So Nellie thought it was unfair that she didn't have a title and the other mistresses did. I mean, what did they do that she didn't do? So that was unfair. Everybody would understand that and feel that. But what she got more upset about was that her children didn't have titles, whereas the other children of his mistresses did. And so she lobbied very strongly for her children to become titled in some way.
When her elder son was aged about 6, she called him in Charles's presence and said, "Come here, you little bastard." And when Charles remonstrated, she then said, "I have no other name or title by which to call him." And it was very soon afterwards that her son was then created Earl of Burford and Baron Headington, and indeed some years later, Duke of St Albans.
Nell Gwynn secured wealth in her lifetime and the future of her family through the royal bedchamber.